Good afternoon to you. Mark Side with HurricaneTrack.com here. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and discussion. We'll get a title card later. Kari is working on that, but I got to get this done. Got thunderstorms in the area. Could knock out my internet. You never know. So here we are. Time to talk about what's happening in the tropics. Very busy out there. As you can see, we've got a yellow, a red, and two hurricanes. So the pattern is getting pretty full now after a very quiet August. More than making up for that now. And the good news is nothing is directly impacting land, although our friends in Bermuda and then along the east coast of the U.S. are going to have some issues, a few issues related to Earl there. I'll talk about that and much more as we go forward. And then, of course, in the eastern Pacific, we don't want to forget what's happening out there with Hurricane K, well off the coast of the Baja, but as I'll show you on the satellite here in just a little bit, it is a large hurricane, and it's going to impact a good portion of the Baja Peninsula, and then eventually bring some rainfall up to this area of the southwest U.S. and the extreme northwest portion of Mexico. We can see that here on the track map. Nice wide shot of our three systems out there. The Mercator projection that we've got here, that's what this is called. There is Danielle, still up there. Still a hurricane. Way up here, let's see, what was the lat long from earlier today? Click on it. That's why it's an interactive map, right? 43 north and 36 west. That is incredible. 972 pressure, 80 mile per hour winds. Pretty remarkable. And this is the 2 p.m. update. They do these intermediate advisories when there are watches and warnings going on. Earl, well on its way to really starting to strengthen now, up to 85 miles per hour. This is forecast to be a Category 4 right there, down the road a piece. That's going to be something else. And then in the eastern Pacific, there is K, and it is 105 miles per hour. So, you know, fairly intense out there. So let's zoom in on this and see what we've got over the coming days here. The official forecast keeps the center just offshore. But as we all know, hurricanes are not little circles on the maps. Sometimes they can be very big circles with a lot of impacts within those circles. And so that's what it is here with K. A lot of heavy rain. I'm going to show you a radar animation in just a moment, actually, out of Mexico. But a lot of heavy rain. All this area is going to move up to the north and then eventually northwest. Reaching cooler waters up here, it'll die out. But it could deliver some rainfall to parts of Southern California and extreme southwestern Arizona. And, of course, the northern Baja California region and northwest Mexico, the Sonora area. Desperately needed, so you can take it. And, you know, it'll make everything even greener out there. Brent, our man Brent is down there. Normally he lives in the Virgin Islands. He helps us out with not only our funding and our support, but a lot of our technical stuff. And then he goes out in the field, usually with me and Matt or whoever else is helping. But this particular time, he's down on the Baja after a wedding that he attended. A member of his family got married in Cabo, so he stuck around. And he is currently somewhere out here, if I'm not mistaken. No, I'm sorry, he's farther to the south. He's not that far north. And he's going to make his way towards San Carlos later today and through tonight. And hopefully once he gets to San Carlos, he'll have more internet connectivity through his phone, and he can send me some pictures and video and reports. So there you go. All right, that's a look at K in the eastern Pacific. Let's slide it over and take a look at what's going on in the Atlantic here with Earl. There it is, forecast to be a Category 4 here in just a couple of days. The core of Earl will pass comfortably south and east of Bermuda. And that's a good thing because it is strengthening throughout. And strengthening hurricanes are a little bit of a different animal, especially when they rapidly intensify right on top of you. And you don't want that to happen in Bermuda. I've got a few friends over there, and they don't want that to happen either. Now, one thing that Earl will do, is doing, and will continue to do, is it will generate swells that will come out in concentric circles here. I'll do the best that I can. And I'm just going to draw them over here for now. They're going to eventually make their way over, just being lazy, going to make their way over to the land areas, and that includes coming to the south here. So the north-facing island beaches, yes, you're going to receive those swells in the form of wave energy, and then those waves will crash on your shores. And the surfers are going to like it in the favored locations, but beach goers that, you know, like me, that are not necessarily in the best shape, you got to be careful out there, seriously, especially since these are going to be happening into the weekend and the waters are still very warm, people are going to go down. There was some serious lightning out there. You're going to hear the thunder. Just give it a moment. It wasn't that close, I guess. There it is. Hey, you do the update in the southeast in the heat months here, the hot months, you get thunderstorms. Just as long as it doesn't hit the house. Anyway, these swells are a serious problem. They can be. Again, I know the surfers are going to love it, and there's going to be some great pictures and whatever of surfers enjoying this, but I'm serious. We don't need you going to the beach and then leaving in a body bag. I know that sounds grim and morbid, but you have to have that impact on people. I want you alive, because if you're not there on your end of the screen to watch the receiving end, right, then why should I even do this? I'm not wanting to talk to myself, believe it or not. So seriously, be careful out there. Be mindful of the fact that, yes, ocean swells, ocean impacts, whatever, they call it a fish storm. That's fine. Call it what you want. But you got to be careful of those swells. And they will emanate all over. Well, is that the word I'm looking for? They'll propagate. They'll emanate from the hurricane, and then they'll propagate around the ocean. And then we've got Danielle way up here in the northern latitudes. Maybe the remnants of it head towards the Iberian Peninsula over here. We shall see. All right, real quick, a lesson on this. I talk about it often. ACE, the ACE score. What is it? Well, there's a nice Wikipedia article. I will link to it in the description of today's video. But basically, this is what the scientists use to really measure the output of energy, at least one of the measurements. ACE, there's also something called IKE, Integrated Kinetic Energy. We'll worry about that another time. Already going to get confusing if I don't watch it. ACE, though, Accumulated Cyclone Energy, and it is a measurement. There's a formula right there. Hey, you remember that from school, don't you? I sure don't. Anyway, it is a simple way, based on a somewhat complex formula, for scientists to measure the output from the sustained winds. All right? And it's calculated by summing the square of a tropical cyclone's maximum sustained winds, and they do that about every 6 hours. And there's different computer programs that makes all of this nice and easy to look at. Different people chart it and so forth. So ACE tells us not just the quantity. Oh, we had 15 named storms this year. Oh, yeah? Well, how strong were they? Well, a couple of them were hurricanes. Oh, yeah? How long did they live, those hurricanes? How strong were those hurricanes? Well, there was one that was 150 miles per hour, and it stayed 150 miles per hour for about 3 days. It was remarkable. Well, that hurricane will have a much higher ACE score than a tropical storm that lasted 5 or 6 days. So the short-lived, very powerful hurricane could have a much higher ACE than the long-lived tropical storm that was only 45 or 50 miles per hour for a week. All right? So it is a very objective way to measure the actual energy that these tropical systems are putting out. Okay? And a typical ACE score is, each year, 120 or so. Just depends on who you ask. There's another good bolt and accompanying thunder. It's getting closer. It'll be interesting to see if it actually comes through this nice mic that I've got. But a typical ACE score for the hurricane season for the Atlantic is around 100, 120, something like that. It just depends on what data set you look at. But let's look at some of the important factors over here in this table. That a near normal season is anywhere from 73 to 126. All right? Roughly. And then below normal is below 73. So right now we're below normal because today's score is roughly 20. Our ACE today is 20. I looked it up, and I just know that. It's at 20. All right, so above normal would be about above 126. And extremely active or hyperactive is, let's just call it above 160. We'll round it up. What are some of the seasons that had very high ACE scores? The highest ever, as far as we know, 1933. We didn't have satellites back then, so there was probably even more. We had 20 named storms, and this is a great example here. Wait till I shock you with this information. There was 11 hurricanes, 6 of them became majors, and the ACE that year was a whopping 258. Do you see 2020 anywhere on this table? That's a terrible 2020, but I'm doing the best I can. Question mark. Is that on the table anywhere, assuming this has been updated recently? No, it's not. Why? Because the ACE of 2020 was not really that high. I can't remember. I think it was like 159 or I don't remember off the top of my head. It was not that significant. It was under 180. And yet we had 30 named storms that year. Now you see where I'm going with this. 30 named storms, but they didn't last. They weren't intense, lasting a long time. But we had Category 4 Laura and a couple of near Cat 5s, and maybe one of them was a Cat 5 at 2020. A lot of 2020 we don't want to remember. But, you know, as big a season as 2020 was, it didn't crack the top 10. I think that's what that is there, that table. Yes, it is. And so that's the point here. ACE is a really good metric of the quality of what the hurricane season puts out. All right? All right, a couple more things and we'll leave ACE behind. Individuals for the Atlantic, Ivan is the big winner. It had a singular ACE all by itself of 70. It lasted 23 days and it had a duration a long time where it was a Cat 3, 4, or 5. Irma was close behind. And Irma was a Category 5 for several days in a row. We all remember that. Isabel is in there. And then there are others going back through time. All right? All right, and then there are more tables in here if you're interested. Check it out. Again, I will put this link right there in the description of today's video. All right, moving on. Here's the radar out of Mexico. Didn't even realize it till somebody put it on our Discord. I appreciate that. Long-range radar out of Cabo. There's the core of K. These are the rain bands moving in. Again, Brent is somewhere in here, and he's getting some rain. There was a dry slot earlier. I remember he texted me and said, yeah, it must be a dry slot. It's beautiful out here. Well, the heavier stuff is coming. So the closest approach that this should make to the southern Baja is going to be now and over the next several hours. But then farther to the north, it could get a little bit closer up there and maybe even bring hurricane force winds. All right, looking at the satellite animation, and in fact, I'm talking about right here. I don't know the name of any particular geographic area right there. It looks like the spur of a boot, though. We will say that. There's the eye. But look how big this is. It's not a dot. No, there's not a dot out there roaming around. It's a big weather system. Huge fetch of moisture feeding into it. I mean, wow, these things are remarkable. It's just too bad they cause so much calamity and heartache when they hit land. Otherwise, we could really get behind them and be like, these are amazing things to watch. But they do. They cause damage. They make life miserable. And so we lament at their approach, especially when they are strong, that is for sure. And even the weak ones can make things rather miserable. As far as making a direct impact up here, forget about it. Not going to happen. I think it was 1939 that the last one had a watch or a warning or anything like that. I think it was, well, it was unnamed back then because they weren't named. But this just isn't going to make it. There's too much of a strong high pressure area over the west out here. And that's going to make this turn off this way and then just kind of die out over the colder waters. Man, it's really raining hard now of the Pacific there. Got to watch this. Anytime you've got any energy sitting over the warm Gulf, you just never know. I don't see anything that really raises any bright eyebrows just yet, but you don't ignore stuff like that. There's Earl. Nobody will be ignoring Earl, at least if you're in Bermuda, I guess. And again, along the East Coast, keep an eye on it because those swells, like I said, those are going to be coming out. Again, the surfers, you're going to love it, but it can be deadly if you're not careful. And I mean that. You're going to be really careful. My wife works in the emergency department here in Wilmington. She has seen people come in with back and neck injuries, and she has seen it when people have died. And the rescuers that try to save those people, it's hard. So just be careful and know your limits. There's Danielle. Wow. I mean, well, should just sit back for a moment and just marvel at that. Way up in the North Atlantic. And I'm going to show you something that Danielle did that I thought it would do, and I'm going to give myself credit. I mean, it's pretty easy to have figured it out, but it did it. It made an accomplishment that I'm going to show you in just a moment. Down here, we got to watch this. This is Invest Area 95L. Dry air around it, impeding the development just a little bit. May go on to become a tropical depression and briefly a tropical storm before the dry air and upper level winds become too hostile and it dies away. And then we got to watch this area. It's tagged on the outlook from the Hurricane Center, not an invest area yet, but it might be. And we're going to have to watch this because that's at a fairly low latitude. That's 10 degrees north right there. Pretty good straight line, if I may say so myself. So we got to watch this as it chugs along kind of quietly down there at a low latitude. It is that time of year, and we'll see what happens. The Atlantic staying pretty darn busy. Remember, the ace today is 20. By the way, just one more about that. Today it's 20, and we are at about 44% of where we should be, if I'm not mistaken, for this time of year. And that's going to really, really go up. We're going to start catching up as Earl gets stronger. Now, let's talk about this. This is back from September 1st. Again, one of our patrons over on our Discord dug up one of these maps for me from September the 1st. This is what the North Atlantic looked like. All of that ridiculous warmth up there. And then we had Danielle, and I suspected that Danielle could come along and start to chew away at those anomalies, those positive anomalies, the departures from average, and that's exactly what happened. Did you see it? That is the first. Here we are a few days later, and look at all of this area right up here. That is all because of Danielle. It matters. That's a little bit of an area now in the North Atlantic where those water temperatures were insanely above normal, and now some of those areas are below average. So some of the heat has been removed from the far northern latitudes, and watch what Earl does as Earl comes across this area in the coming days. We will revisit this again. I'm going to save that other map, and we'll see. And you're going to watch. A lot of this area is going to be whacked down, taken out, that heat taken out. And I think that's going to help to restore some of the balance that it's, it's definitely warm down here, but it's warmer up here relative to average. Remember, this is relative to average. The water up here is not 85 degrees like it is in some of these areas, but it's still 80 degrees, which is way above where it should be. And that is competing, at least one of the factors keeping the hurricane season down, that is competing with what's trying to happen down here. And as we change this around with these hurricanes taking that heat out and the seasons gradually changing, these tropical waves coming off at lower and lower latitudes, it's only a matter of time and something's going to get over here and cause us some problems. I don't see how we get out of the hurricane season with nothing in the western basin. It's possible, but it's going to be hard to convince me, especially when you look at this profile. The La Nina now really stretching across the entire tropical Pacific. The North Atlantic still, yes, way above where it should be, but there's that one area that's been carved away by Danielle. But the main development region, the Caribbean and the Gulf, all way warmer. Well, not way warmer. Got to keep it real. They are warmer than they should be. This is way warmer. That's ridiculous. Look at that again. 5 Celsius. 5 Celsius. What is that? Almost 7 degrees Fahrenheit above where it should be. That's remarkable. All right, looking at the vorticity real quick, mainly to show you this. That's 95L. So, yeah, it's got a lot of area to bundle together, but it could do it. And that could be our next named storm, perhaps. Or will Earl give birth to something itself? Wait till I show you the Euro especially. Something really weird happens up through here. That might give us our next named storm. Just all kinds of weirdness this year. By the way, that is what the vorticity of a well-developed hurricane looks like without a hurricane symbol on top of it like they've got over here for Earl. That is K. And that's it. That's the spin in the atmosphere. That's what we look for. These are what you see when nature bundles the energy. Even Danielle, way up there in the high latitudes. That's it. That's the fingerprint. That's what I look for. All right, real quick, GFS out west, briefly. There's K coming in. This is your precipitable water. How much water is in the atmosphere, the precipitable water value. And you see what happens. A lot of those greens, those do make their way up into southwest Arizona, parts of southern Cal. And yeah, it could be a little rainy, maybe some heavy rain, anywhere from a half to 3/4, maybe an inch of rain up there, but then the circulation just kind of dies away down there. But yeah, you can really use it. You're going to get it. Be glad. It's one of those benefits from a tropical cyclone. Now, the Euro, I want to show you this. This is the ECMWF from the 12Z run today. This is the current analysis when the 12Z was starting to initialize This would be Earl right here. There's 95L. This is that one area that we need to watch. And then there's more energy over Africa. There's Danielle. Little piece of energy. There's this little trough deal coming off the East Coast. So those are the chess pieces, so to speak. Now let's move this out into time. 24 hours. Earl headed towards Bermuda, but then it takes a right-hand turn, thank goodness, at 48 hours. But watch what happens with this energy on the backside of Earl. It's really weird. By 72 hours, it's almost like it lays an egg. I mean, I don't really understand it. I'm going to have to ask some of my smarter-than-I friends. There's definitely people smarter than me. I mean, come on. What is this? What's going on? Like it leaves a little trough behind, and it really quickly focuses, bundles up. That could be Fiona, but maybe this could be as well. I don't know. It's really weird. That's 72 hours. Look what happens at 96. It literally develops that into a closed, cyclone, if you will, a tropical cyclone. And then that area that was coming off Africa, that's sitting over here. There's another impulse coming. I mean, it just stays busy. This is September the 11th, so we're at the peak of the hurricane season. This is 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, just to show you. No reason to look farther out, or is it further? I think it's further. Further out in time than that for obvious reasons. It's just too much chaos out there, right? But it does stay active. That's the bottom line. Everything does stay busy, and it all stays in the eastern part of the Atlantic. However, I just think it's a matter of time that either something comes all the way across or the pattern changes and these tropical waves, at least they make it over here and they develop as the pattern changes to be more conducive in the western part of the basin, that we somehow develop trouble that way. I mean, anybody can see that if you've been tracking hurricanes long enough. You know it is not over until it's over. All right, I don't have a title card to exit on, so we'll just exit here. And we'll start or stop where we started. There we go. Luckily, my internet stayed up throughout my presentation, and the thunderstorm has passed. All right, that is it from me for today. I'm done. Let's get out of here. Let's get this thing online for you all. Well, I'm trying to, scratching my nose there. There we go. Now I can scratch my nose. So, we're done. So you learned about ACE. I showed you what's happening in the tropics, and I'll do it again starting tomorrow morning with the What's Up in the Tropics segment. We will see where Earl takes us. Category 4, probably so. And everything else out there, I'll stay on top of it for you. All right? Have a great rest of your Wednesday. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving me a part of your day. I do appreciate it. I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning.